let us now turn our attention to a very important affix which is used in the language a lot. That affix is this affix tumun. The sutram that we are going to study now is 3.3.10. This sutram reads tumun nulau kriyayang kriyarthayam. Now before going on with this sutram, let us of course make a note of the fact that this sutram is in the adhikara of kruddating, which starts from 3193. It's also of course in the adhikara of dhatoho, which starts from 3191, and it's also in the adhikara of bhavishyati, which we just studied the sutram 333, bhavishyati gamyadayaha. So bhavishyati runs from 333 down to 3.3.15. We have of course studied 3.3.13, which is rit she cha, as well as 3.3.14 ritas sadva, as well as 3.3.15 anadyatane lut, and now we are studying 3.3.10 tumun nulau kriyayang kriyarthayam. So this sutram has the anuvritti of bhavishyati coming down because the adhikara bhavishyati runs from 3.3.3 down to 3.3.15. Okay, let's see what the sutram says. Now the vritti of the sutram says kriyarthayam kriyayam upapade bhavishyatiyarthe dhatoretau staha. Etau means tumun nulau staha, which means the affix tumun as well as nul may be used following a verbal root because we are in the adhikara of dhatoho to denote a future action. This is the adhikara of bhavishyati, when in conjunction with another action intended for the future action. So this is the condition of kriyayam kriyarthayam. What is a kriyartha kriya? That is the note number 1 here. Kriyartha kriya is an action which is a kriya whose artha means prayojanam is another action, another kriya. So it is a action which is done for the sake of, which is intended for another action. So there are two actions involved here, and one of these two actions is being done for the sake of another action. And when such a kriyartha kriya is present, then in conjunction with that alone, we can use the affix tumun as well as nul by this sutram 3.3.10. Let's take an example to understand what this kriyartha kriya exactly is. Let's take the example Krishnam drashtum yati. Krishnan drashtum yati. This action of going, the yana kriya, that is the kriyartha kriya, because the action of going is intended for, it is for the sake of, it's in order to accomplish the action of seeing, which is the future action. So the action in the future is the action of seeing, the darshana kriya, and the kriyartha kriya is the yana kriya, the action of going. And because this yana kriya is present in the word yati, that's what allows us to use this affix tumun following the verbal root drishya to denote the future action of seeing. So that is how this sutram works. There is a kriyartha kriya, in this case the yana kriya, the action of going, and that kriyartha kriya is done for the sake of, in order to facilitate the future action of seeing. And the verbal root denoting that action of seeing, which is the dhatu drish in this case, that is the one that takes the affix tumun, because this tumun denotes the future action, not the kriyartha kriya. The kriyartha kriya is just the upapadam. Now in the sutram, Panini says kriyayam kriyarthayam, the saptami ekavachanam. Of course we know what that means as per 3192. Tatropapadam saptami stham. Saptamyante pade karmani tyadav vachyatvena sthitam yat kumbhadi tadvachakam padam upapada sanyam syat. So the designation of upapadam is applied to a term which denotes something which is present in a word ending in the locative case in the sutram. So here in the locative case in the saptamyantam padam is kriyayam kriyarthayam. So that points to the upapadam. So the upapadam should be a word denoting an action which is done for the sake of another action, in this case for the sake of another future action. So that is the condition, important condition. In order to use this sutram, there has to be a upapadam, a word which denotes an action which is done for the sake of another future action. Okay, now let us take the derivation now of this Pradipadikam drashtum. Drashtum. This is derived from the verbal root drish, which is drishir prekshane. Drishir prekshane in the bhadiganaha. Here the ir in drishir gets the is sanya by the vardikam ira is sanya vacha and tasya lopaha. So the verbal root is drish. After removing these letters, we have drish. We add the affix tumun here because the condition of kriyayam, kriyarthayam is satisfied, because we do have the yana kriya, the action of going, which is being done for the sake of the action of the future action of seeing. So therefore the condition is satisfied. The kriyartha kriya is an upapadam. So therefore we add this affix tumun following the verbal root drish, which denotes the future action of seeing. Remember, we are in the adhikara of bhavishyati. So the action of seeing must be the future action which we have. Okay, so we get drish plus tumun. Remove these letters. Nakarasit sanya bhalantyam. Ukarasit sanya by upadesh jananasika it. And then tasya lopaha. So we have drish plus tum. Now nakara is an it in tumun doesn't really affect us in any way. That's only for the accent in the Veda. Now the idagamaha would have come here by the sutram ardhadhatukasya valadehe, because tumun definitely has a sanya of ardhadhatukam by 34114 ardhadhatukam sheshaha. It's a valadi pratyaha, so it can take the idagamaha. But here this verbal root drish is a anudatupadeshaha. So therefore, ekacha upadeshe nudatat stops the idagamaha. Among the verbal roots ending in a talavya shakaraha, those which are nudattupadeshaha, those monosyllabic verbal roots which are nudattupadeshaha are as follows: Shanteshu krusha damsha disha drisha mrisha risha rusha lisha visha sprusho dasha. So drish is listed there, so this is anudattupadesha dhatuhu, so therefore 7 to 10 stops the idagamaha, which would have been done by 7 to 35. So tumun does not take the idagamaha. And now we apply sutram srijidrishor jalyamakiti 6158, which we have studied before. That sutram, if we recall, it says that anayor amagamaha sya jaladavakiti. So when followed by a affix which is not a kit, does not have kakar as a it, which begins with a jhal letter, the verbal root srij as well as drish, which is what we have right now, gets the augment So right now what do we have? We have the affix tumun. It is not a kit pratyaha by any means, and it does begin with a jhal letter, which is the takaraha. So then what happens is that we get the augment and by midacho antyat paraha, the augment joins after the last vowel, which is the rikaraha in drish. So we get dr sha plus tum. And now remove the letter makaraha bhalantyam tasya lopaha, so we get dr sha tum. And of course now yand sandhi ikonachi rikarasya sthane rephadeshaha, so we get drash plus tum. And now we use the sutram 8 to 36 to the sandhikaryam. 8 to 36 vrashcha vrashja srija mrija yaja raja bhrajascha sham shaha. So here we do have a talavya shakaraha, which is followed by the jhal letter, the takara of tumun. So therefore that talavya shakaraha belonging to the verbal drish, it takes the murdhanya shakara adesha. We get drash plus tum, and then we apply shtunashtuhu to put the takara adesha in place of takara. We get drashtum. Drashtum gets the paradipadika sanya by 1 to 46, and it also gets the avyaya sanya by 1139. Krinmejantaha 1139. Krinmejantaha says krudyo mantaha ejantascha tadantam avyayam syat. So term ending in a krit pratyaya. In this case we have tumun, which has a krit sanya because this sutram 3310 belongs to the adhikara of kridating, which starts from 3193, and tumun ends in a makaraha, because after removing the it letters it is tum, ends in a makaraha. So therefore drashtum, which ends in the affix tumun, gets the avyaya sanya. So this is a indeclinable. This is how we derive drashtum. Now in the case where we use the affix nul, the example would be krishnam darshako yati. Same logic here. We have the yana kriya, which is the kriyartha kriya. There is an upapadam that's in conjunction here. So in connection with that, we can use this affix nul by this sutram to denote the future action of seeing. So here we start with the same verbal root drish plus the affix nul by the same sutram 3310, and We remove these letters, the nakarasit sanya by chutu, lakarasit sanya bhalantyam tasya lopaha. The lakara is the it again for the intonation, swarartha in the Vedas, so that doesn't affect us right now. And nakara is an it to facilitate operations such as the vriddhi operations by 72115, 72116, achodnyati, atopadhayaha. Also the yuk augment by ato, yuk chin krutoho. So these operations depend on that nakara as a it. So that is why it has been employed by Panini. So now we have drish plus vu, and now by 711 yuvaranakau, vu takes the aka adeshaha, and by anekachis sarvasya replaces the entire vu, and so now we have drish plus aka, and now we apply puganta lagupasasya cha along with uranraparaha, and we get darsha aka, which is darshaka. Darshaka gets the prabhadika sanya by kritadita samasascha. In pullinge it will decline like rama shabdaha, so we get darshakaha as the prathama ekavachanam. Now one point to note is that this affix nul we have already studied is also prescribed by the sutram 3.1.133 nul trichau. It is prescribed in a general sense of kartari krit, any doer of an action. To denote the agent of the action, the affix nul as well as trich may be used. So now what is the difference between that nul and this nul? How do we know which one is which? For that, we look at this note number 2 over here, which says that, let's look at the two sentences, Odanasya bhakshako yati and Odanam bhakshako yati. Now in one case we have a shashti ekavachanam Odanasya, that's the object of the action of eating. Second case we have Odanam. In both sentences the affix nul has been used in forming the pratipadikam bhakshaka, in the sense of the agent, of course by kartari krit. So it denotes the agent of the action of eating. But in the first sentence, the affix nul is prescribed by nul trichau. So there is no kriyartha kriya here. There is no sense of any future action either. There is no bhavishyati and there is no kriyartha kriya. What the sentence simply means that the eater of rice goes. One who eats rice, he is going. The action of going is not being done for the sake of the action of eating at all. And there is no sense of future action here. So this is simply the affix nul prescribed by 3.1.133 nul trichau, just to simply denote the agent of the action of eating with no other further connotation. But in sentence B, the affix nul is prescribed by this sutram 3.3.10 tumun nulau kriyayam kriyarthayam, because there the action of going in the second sentence odanam bhakshako yati, that is a kriyartha kriya. The action of going is done for the sake of the future action of eating. So here this nul is used to denote the future action of eating on the condition that there is this action of going which is done for the sake of the action of the future action of eating. So here the sutram 3.3.10 is used. Now what happens is that in the first case when you have odanasya bhakshako yati, there odanasya ends in the shashti vakti because of sutram kartrikarmanoho kriti, 2.365, because of course the affix nul has the krit sanya. So in connection with that, the object of the action, in this case odana, the pratipadikam odana takes the shashti vakti, becomes odanasya. So this is as per kartrikarmanoho kriti, which overrides 2.3.2, which is karmani ditiya. So here 2.365 holds the final say and we use shashti vakti. The second sentence, what happens is that this is a special sutram 2.370. Okay, nor bhavishya dadha marnya yoho, which blocks 2.365 kartikarmanoho kriti. This sutram 2.370 we will study in detail when we study the karaka prakaranam. Right now let's just look at the basic meaning for our present purpose. The vritti of this sutram actually says bhavishyatya bhavishya dadha marnyarthe nascha yoge shashti nasyat. Let us ignore this second term in the vritti, which is bhavishya dadha marnyarthe nascha. We don't need that right now. Let's just focus on the first part, which says bhavishyatya bhavishyati akasya yoge shashti nasyat. So what it says is that when this aka, the affix nul, is used bhavishyati, in connection with that, so tasya yoge Why? Shashti nasyat. Shashti cannot be used. So if you have the affix occur, which means affix null here, which is used to denote a future action, which is what we do have, then the Sutram 2370 blocks 2365. Of course, in the first case, when we had Odanasya Bhakshako Yati, there is no future action there. So we do have occur there also in the first sentence, but no future action being denoted. So 2370 does not apply in the first sentence. The second sentence it applies and blocks 2365, blocks the Shashti Bhakti, and we go back to Karmani Ditya. This is a very important distinction between the affix null prescribed by 3310, this sutram, versus the same affix prescribed by 31133. In the case of the affix prescribed by 3310, the object of that future action takes the Dvitiya Vibhakti because 2370 blocks 2365. In the case of the first instance, when we use the general application of null by 31133, null trishau, then the object of the action, which is not a future action, it takes the Shashti Bhakti by 2365. So this is how we can recognize which type of null is being used. The form is the same, Bhakshakaha, Bhakshakaha. But look at the object of the action, see what Vibhakti it has taken, and that is a way to differentiate between one null, one affix null, and the same affix null in a different sense.